Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? I always think about the moments that were the most painful that have actually brought me the most power. And the whole concept, the theme that I sit in is what does it mean to form trauma into triumph? And Nick, I'm wondering here, if you rewind, go back to young Nick, to Nick at the beginning of this journey, what were one of those moments that life was happening to you that you've had to reframe into life is happening for you?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. The one that comes up for me is I remember when I was very young, um, understanding, like becoming a father helped me understand my father so much better. I think you don't really meet your father until you become one, at least for those who are fathers who are listening. You know what I'm talking about. And those who aren't, there's other likely moments in life of where we can find reflections, but there's just something deep that happens. And there's a depth of understanding that brings graciousness and empathy and that concept of, at least in my world, that my dad knew he did the best that he knew to do at the time that he knew to do it. Yet at a very young age, I watched my father step out of our home a lot. And that emotional chaos and the friction of abandonment was one of those things early on in life where I felt like life was happening to me. And I've replayed that movie in my head many times, and I've gone through deep therapy around many things in my life. This one came up a few times because at the root of abandonment is this feeling of rejection. And I never really understood what I was looking for. What was the anchor that I was hoping to see or to grab out and find protection? And through the modality of meditation and going back to that moment several times, what I ended up figuring out is my grandfather was the person that I was looking for in the moments of my deepest abandonment, life happening to me, meaning my father rejecting our home and leaving. It brought this place of a void of where I had to deeply understand myself and what part of myself was reaching out to my grandfather saying, there's a sense of completion that's required here.
When I was young, I would lay in bed at night and literally cry myself to sleep because I never met my father. That's not entirely true. I met him once. I met him on my fifth birthday, and he was a monster. And I won't get into the details now, but it was not a great meeting experience. And I would lay in bed at night and I would cry myself to sleep time and time again because my stepfather was a monster. 6'4", 250, linebacker size fucking dude who'd beat the shit out of a 7-year-old. So play that. And I would just be like, God, why are you not bringing my dad to save me from this guy? And I used to watch this movie, Richie Rich. I don't know if you've ever seen it or
Yeah,
not.
of course.
I
Yeah.
fucking hate that movie, but I used to watch it because I would watch it like, this kid's dad is, here's where I'm going with this. Richie Rich's father was rich, but his father was never there. And so Richie Rich had everything you could ever imagine in the world except a father. And I would watch this movie and I'd be incredibly envious of him not understanding and knowing the truth. He was actually in the same situation that I was in. And as I fast forward and I look at life today, I think to myself, actually, I'm incredibly grateful that I never had a father because the men in my life, the mentors in my life, these guys, only guy, there are amazing women mentors in my life too, but I'm speaking towards the men. They have given me more than those other men who were supposed to be there could ever give me. And so when you speak of gratitude, especially in that arena, I go, yep, I get that. But there's a transition that has to happen. You have to be able to work through the resentment, the abandonment, the shame, the guilt, the hate. Honestly, I had so much hate for a long time until I could let it go. And I'm wondering, Nick, like, what was the transition for you? How do you go from I am feeling so abandoned and lost and seeking to fill this void to being like, oh, now I'm a father. I see the reflection of the experience of life and I'm grateful because that's fucking insane.
So the pathway for me on going from, I guess, abandoned and broken and feeling lost and directionless from a place of where I was seeking maybe that pillar figure, that fortitude in someone else. Certainly, life has a way of bringing us back to the road of self, right? And the deeper part of ourself, which is living an inspired life, which is just living in spirit. And I think that that's now the lens that I look through. And what I found is that safety and that security in who I am. And that's really where I guess this story lands is I had to go through the experience of going, man, what was I looking for? And I realized that my grandfather, my dad was an entrepreneur, fourth generation entrepreneur. My grandfather was third generation. So by the time my grandfather was in his 70s, he was the one who actually was like taking care of me the most. My mom went to college when I was a young kid, and my dad was working 20 hours a day. So my grandfather was the one who was really that anchor for me. And when I figured out in transition of that was always a void. It was like a movie in my head that I didn't want to keep playing, and I couldn't figure out how to finish it with redemption. Like
Mhm.
redemption and gratitude are always tied together. I just had like how my life was normal and then what the explosion of life was, but I never had a new normal. And that's what brings gratitude, is defining the new normal. And the new normal for me in that story was understanding the qualities of my grandfather were the things that I needed to actually end up accepting about myself. So although he may have been the visual anchor at that time, if he was there, I knew I would be what? Protected. Yeah, he was the first one who came to me and said, he called me Nicky. It's like old school Italian families. Nicky, you're going to be a star. You're going to be a star. He was the one who spoke into my life from a very young age. And what I did was I had this moment of adopting his ideas and adopting his care and compassion, the character qualities of who he was, and then just embedding them into my life. And there was a sense of deep completion there, but also acknowledgement that those are parts of me that I had rejected for a long time, that then I took acceptance of and took on the identity of those elements as well. Because having four children, I need to be a protector. I need to stand in the gap in those moments. And yeah, that's how I found gratitude, was through redemption and becoming the thing that I needed the most and finding that within myself.